Right, let's dive in then, because there's honestly no better time to break all this down. The smile on my face today isn't just for show. It's because we're about to talk all things UEFA Champions League, and more importantly, what this means for Celtic as we stand at a crucial turning point. The season 24-25 is now officially done and dusted. Nothing in the coefficient tables is going to shift anymore. Everything's locked in. And with that, we can take a breath step back and properly assess where things stand. And more crucially, where they're headed. Now we're only a few weeks away from the first whistles being blown in the Champions League qualifiers. And although Celtic don't step into the action until the final qualifying round, the road is already being paved by the results of others. So what happens now in these early stages could end up impacting us massively. And with so much riding on this, is the perfect time to sit down and go through every little detail that matters. Here's the deal. If Celtic managed to qualify for the group stage this year, it'll be the 4th consecutive season we've done it. That might sound like a simple stat, but it's historic. Celtic have never qualified for 4 straight Champions League campaigns. 3-0, that's our current record. So if we can make it 4, it's not just a big deal. It's something that sets a new standard for the club in Europe. That kind of consistency at the top level is what the fans dream about and what the club has been working tirelessly to build and towards. But before we get lost dreaming of packed out nights under the lights at Celtic Park, let's take a proper look at where we actually sit in UEFA's various coefficient rankings. Starting with the national picture, then moving to the club rankings. Now, if you followed this stuff before, you'll know that UEFA's association coefficient has a 1-year lag. That means the country rankings that decide qualification slots for this upcoming season are actually based on the results from the 23-24 season. Confusing, definitely, but that's UEFA for you. So at the end of the 23-24 season, Scotland finished in 11th place in the association rankings. That position meant that Celtic, as Scottish champions, would enter the final round of Champions League qualification. But here's the kicker: had Scotland finished just 1 place higher, in 10th we would have gone straight into the league phase without needing to qualify at all. Just imagine that. No qualifiers, no extra pressure, just direct access to the main stage. But that dream slipped away, and instead it was the Czech Republic who nabbed 10th place, which meant their champion Slavia Prague got the automatic spot. What makes that sting a bit more is how close it really was. Scotland and the Czech Republic actually ended up with the same total coefficient points, 36.05. That's not a typo, the exact same number, so why were they ahead? That's the maddening part. It likely comes down to a tiebreaker based on the highest single season points, or maybe the number of teams that progressed further in Europe. It's not alphabetical order, don't worry, but still it leaves you scratching your head. Now fast forward to where we are now. After the 24-25 season just finished, Scotland have dropped a few spots now, sitting 14th in the rankings. It's frustrating because last season wasn't a disaster. In fact, Scotland earned 9.25 points, which is decent. But it just wasn't enough compared to the nations around us. Greece, for example, had a stormer of a year with 12.6 points, and Norway weren't far behind either. Their stronger seasons from rivals meant they leapfrogged us in the rankings. So what does sitting in 14th mean for Celtic? Surprisingly, and thankfully, not much changes for us next season. If we win the Scottish Premiership again, we'll still have just 1 round of qualifying to go through to reach the champions. League phase. That doesn't change whether we're ranked 11th or 14th, but here's the real danger. If Scotland drop 1 more place to 15th, then the path gets harder. That would likely mean 2 qualifying rounds instead of 1, and that's absolutely not what we want. The real prize in all this ranking chaos is getting to 10th place. That's the golden ticket. Win the domestic league and boom, you're into the Champions League group stage with no qualifiers. But looking at the current numbers, that's a tall order. Turkey, who currently sit 10th, are up at 43.9 points. Scotland 35.5. That's a massive gap. So realistically, we're not going to hit that spot next season, or probably the one after. For now, we've got to accept that qualification rounds are going to be our route into the Champions League for at least the next couple of years. It's a cycle though. These rankings fluctuate over time depending on how clubs perform in Europe, and while we're down just now, things can always turn around. But back to Celtic, the good news is we'll be seeded in the final qualifying round, which definitely helps. It's a far cry from those grim years around 2017 and 2018 when we had to slog through 4 different rounds just to make it to the group stage. It's a different era now, still the seeding. Doesn't guarantee anything, it just improves your odds of avoiding the absolute toughest draws. But let's shift to the club coefficient now. And I'll be honest, this part's a bit more sobering. Celtic are currently ranked 59th in Europe. Yeah, you heard that right. 5'9", just below Galatasaray and just ahead of Maccabi. Tel Aviv. That's not the kind of company Celtic should be keeping, with all due respect. We're a massive club with a European pedigree and a fan base that's unmatched in terms of passion and support. Being 59th doesn't reflect that. But here's where it gets interesting. UEFA's club coefficient is based on a rolling 5-year cycle, meaning each season the oldest one drops off and the new one gets added. And thank goodness for that, because the 2020-21 season is about to be binned. That was the COVID hit year when everything seemed to fall apart. Celtic were battered left, right, and center and ended up with just 3 coefficient points that season, including 2 brutal 4-0 defeats to Slavia Prague. So when that nightmare of a season drops off, we'll replace it with whatever we manage this coming campaign. And if we can match the performance of last season, where we racked up 16 points, then things will shift dramatically. Simple math, swap out 3 points for 16 and you're adding 13 extra points to our total tally. That would take us from our current position all the way up to around 42nd or 43rd in the rankings. That's a 16-place jump just like that. Huge difference. And if you look around that part of the table, clubs like Dinamo Zagreb, Olympiacos, AZ Alkmaar, Slavia Prague, Bodo, Glimt Salzburg, that's the bracket where Celtic should be operating. Being in the 30s or even early 40s would make life so much easier when it comes to seedings in the future. It would help avoid tricky opponents and allow us to focus more on football, less on sweating over coefficients and draw scenarios. So while being 59th isn't where we want to be, it's not the end of the world either. With another strong European run, we can climb fast. The challenge is to repeat or even improve on last season's European campaign. That won't be easy, but it's doable. And given the way we've performed against teams of a similar caliber recently, there's reason to believe. Celtic in recent seasons have developed a bit of steel away from home in Europe, something that was sorely lacking in the past. Clean sheets in Bergamo against Atalanta, clean sheet in Zagreb, almost got one in Munich against Bayern, but just fell short in the final seconds. That's a big shift. We're not the soft touch we used to be on the road. That's massive in Europe. If we can carry that into the qualifiers, then it bodes well for our chances. Now we've got 1 round of qualifying to get through. 2 legs. 1 home, 1 away. Sometime in mid to late August. The draw is going to be early August, so we won't even know our opponent for sure until maybe a week before the first leg. It's a bit of a waiting game, but the important thing is we'll be seeded. That means we avoid the biggest threats. We can't face the likes of Copenhagen, Red Star Belgrade, Ferencvaros, or Bodo Glimt. All tough sides who will either be seeded to or already sitting in the same round, so we'll be drawn against one of the lower ranked teams. That said, this is still a Champions League playoff round. These are champions of their countries just like us. They're used to winning. They'll be tough to beat, especially away from home. But if we can avoid defeat in the first leg, wherever that ends up being, then coming back to Celtic Park for the decider is something I think we'd all feel confident about. And let's not forget, unlike in previous years when qualifiers started in mid-July and we were basically rolling straight from pre-season into must-win matches, this time's different. By the time this tie kicks off, Celtic will have had a full preseason plus 3 domestic premiership matches under their belt. That means no excuses. The rust should be gone. The rhythm should be there. We'll be ready. That makes a big difference. Because let's be honest, some of those early season European slip-ups from the past had a lot to do with lack of sharpness and players still finding their legs. This time, that won't be a factor. Also, while it would be ideal to bring in some new signings before this playoff tie, and of course we all want that, I genuinely believe that the current squad, as it stands right now, is strong enough to get the job done. We're talking about basically the same group that went toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich and didn't look out of place. Sure, a couple of names will be missing, but we've also brought in Kieran Tierney, and if he's fit, that's a massive boost. What's absolutely non-negotiable, though, is that we don't lose any key players before this tie. If the club decide they need to sell someone, fine, but do it after this playoff. This match is too important financially and in terms of the club's reputation. It's got to be all hands on deck. That's where we'll pause for now, because while there's more to explore, especially about who's already made it into the league phase and what kind of group we might land in, the focus has to remain sharp. One tie, 2 matches, win them. And we're back in the big time. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. There's a stirring wind blowing through the corridors of Celtic Park, and it's whispering of a potential shake-up that could set tongues wagging from Glasgow to the Midlands. Word on the terraces and in backroom circles suggests a rumored player swap might be on the cards. One that could see Japanese midfield maestro HATATE make his way to Leicester City, while MAVIDIDI, the English winger with flair to burn, heads north to don the green and white hoops, while neither club has gone on the record. Sources close to both camps hint that exploratory talks may have taken place, with mutual interest simmering beneath the surface. Leicester, recently promoted back to the Premier League, are said to be admirers of HATATE's dynamism and vision. The Foxes are rebuilding for top-flight survival, and a player of HATATE's technical class and work rate could be exactly the kind of midfield metronome Enzo Maresca, or whoever ends up in charge, would want at the heart of his system. On the flip side, Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers is believed to be an admirer of Mavididi's raw pace and attacking instinct. The 25-year-old, who came through Arsenal's academy and has experience in League One with Montpellier, has shown glimpses of brilliance at Leicester, but competition for places and tactical shifts have kept him from nailing down a starting role. A move to Glasgow could offer him the stage to flourish, particularly in a system that favors wide men with a direct approach and eye for goal. Of course, nothing is set in stone. These things have a way of fading into the fog of transfer window speculation as quickly as they emerge. But the fit, on paper at least, is tantalizing. HATATE, still just 26, has conquered much in Scottish football and may fancy testing himself in the English top tier. Meanwhile, Mavididi might relish the chance to reignite his career in a high-profile role at a club where he'd be an immediate fan favorite if he hits the ground running. Until anything concrete surfaces, it remains in the realm of rumor. But where there's smoke, especially in the world of football transfers, there's often fire. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.